This is a fiber laser, and the coin you're watching isn't just engraved, it's being carved layer by layer until it's cut completely through. This is the most powerful laser I've ever had in my workshop, and today I am putting it to work. Hey there, so I've been using the xTool F1 Ultra for about a year now, and it's been great. I've done some very cool projects with this fiber laser, but I've definitely hit the ceiling of what this machine can cut, mostly when it comes to deep metal engraving and cutting thicker material without it taking half a lifetime. So when xTool released the new F2 Ultra with a 60-watt MOPA laser, I knew I had to try it, and instead of doing the usual feature list, I want to focus on the things I care about, so metal engraving, embossing and cutting, because that's where I spend most of my time with these machines anyway. And I'll just say this, the difference is crazy. The jump from a 20-watt fiber laser to a 60-watt MOPA is huge. So let's get straight into it, starting with the feature I am most excited to test. One of the reasons I love fiber lasers is the ability to create embossed 3D relief engravings on metal, basically turning a complete flat surface into something that looks sculpted. Technically, this is called depth map engraving, and it works like this. You take an image with 256 layers of gray, where white is the highest point, black the deepest cut, and the laser engraves these values layer by layer. Darker area gets blasted more, lighter area less. It sounds straightforward, but the real engraving depth you get depends on a few factors. Mainly how powerful the fiber laser is and how fast or slow the process is set. To compare the result properly, I'm using brass coin blanks. They're a convenient size, they engrave well, and many of you already know what these coins should look like. So for the first test, I engraved the exact same depth map design on two identical blank, same file, same material, same setting, except for the power difference. And I wanted to give the F1 Ultra the best chance, so I used slow speed and 2 passes. Now this on screen is the process on the F2 Ultra, and you can really see how deep this one is going. By the way, to better show the depth, I'm cleaning all the coins with a soft wire brush, then applying a bit of antiquing patina, and finally buffing the raised area with different methods, mainly fine steel wire. And here's the result. With the F1 Ultra you can absolutely get a nice effect. The relief is there, and honestly is great for a 20-watt fiber laser. It just takes a long time. This one needed 4.5 hours of engraving, but the F2 Ultra, these things just digs. The depth difference is ridiculous. The whole design actually looks sculpted. And the F2 Ultra went twice as deep, about 1.5 mm on the F1 versus over 3 mm on the F2. And depending on the coin thickness, with this setting you can actually cut all the way through a coin, which is kind of crazy. And the best part is that it's also faster. Even though I used the same setting, the F2 Ultra finished the job in just under 3 hours. And look, you might prefer the finish with less depth on an embossed coin, and that's totally valid. So let's compare something a little more normal. So I engraved 2 more identical coins, but this time at 3000 mm a second with only a single pass. And here's the result. The F2 Ultra went noticeably deeper with more contrast, and it was faster, about 55 minutes versus 1 hour and 17 minutes on the F1 Ultra. Now, I was having so much fun with these coins that I ended up doing a whole series of speed versus depth tests on the F2 Ultra, and you can see I even made a little jig to center the coin on the engraving area. I actually made the first version using the diode laser on the F2, which is another advantage of this machine. It has a powerful diode module as well, perfect for all the materials the MOPA laser can't really cut. But then I scrapped that jig because the bolt alignment wasn't precise enough for me. So I 3D printed an adapter that snaps into the threaded grid on the work surface. And during testing I realized there's really no risk of melting the plastic, at least with my setting, because the heat from the coin engraving process isn't enough to cause problems. So here are more engraved coins I made with the F2. This one was pushed to the absolute speed limit, 15,000 mm a second, and the process time dropped to only 35 minutes, which is crazy, and you still get a great looking coin. Finally, I tried a couple of my own design and engraved both sides. For alignment, I added a small pencil mark on the coin that lines up with the mark on the jig. And this method isn't 100% precise since I'm aligning by eye, but it's very easy and good enough for a coin in my opinion. And yes, I designed a Horde and Alliance coin. I actually used the AI tool inside the xTool Studio software, and that worked out much better than I expected. The Horde coin came out great, and I really like the Alliance too, but Jaina could look a bit better. I didn't run any tests, and depth map definitely have a learning curve, so it could look a lot better. Alright, enough with coins. Now let's talk about metal cutting, because this is something I'm going to use all the time, and it's one of the most exciting possibilities with a fiber laser like this, and is cutting small, precise metal pieces for inlays. So imagine a real scenario. I want to inlay a design into a piece of steel, something decorative like a lotus flower. This kind of motif is very common in Easter metalwork and katana fitting, usually done with copper alloy or rare metals, and normally this is tedious. You have to cut the brass perfectly, then carve the exact same shape into the steel by hand. This is slow and precision work, but with the F2 Ultra, the laser basically does the worst part for me, and it does that with a precision that is honestly unachievable for me. So first I cut the brass inlay out of a 2mm thick brass plate. These are the settings I use, and the whole process only took 7 minutes. Next I move on to the base steel plate. Here, instead of cutting, I am engraving the entire outline of the inlay, removing enough material to create the pocket where the brass will fit. For this test, I went about 1 mm deep, and the process was also quick, around 30 minutes with my setting, but I feel like it could be done faster as well. And that's it. At this point, I can press the brass inlay into the steel, and the fit is so tight that just a couple of light hammer taps lock the inlay in place for good. If I wanted a true mechanical hold, I could undercut the edges of the recess before pressing the inlay, and that would create a positive lock, but for this demonstration you can already see how well this works as is. And because the machine can also do embossing, as you saw earlier, you could take this even further, and you can actually engrave the entire flower design directly onto the brass, sculpting the details with a depth map, and then cut it out. So you end up with a fully detailed inlay piece without ever touching a hand tool, and it's just amazing how detailed these things can be. The footage is very zoomed in, and just look at the size of my index finger here for scale. The central details on this lotus are smaller than the ridges on my fingerprint. Isn't that crazy? And yeah, these are just a couple of the features of the F2 Ultra. I don't want to bore you with a long feature rundown, so if you want to see the full list of specs, check the F2 Ultra page I link in the video description. They explain everything way better than I could in a video, and the list is pretty long. But just so you have the highlights, you get a 60-watt MOPA fiber, a 40-watt diode, and a 220 by 220 work area, dual 4.8 megapixel camera, and speeds, as you saw, up to 15,000 mm per second. And one of the features I want to mention is the wavelength adjustability of the MOPA for color engraving on metal. It looks incredibly cool. You can get those anodized styles color just by tuning the laser, but I'll be honest, it is more of a feature for people who use their laser for product personalization, and for my use, the deep engraving and metal cutting are the real stars. But the fact that this thing can also do color engraving is pretty cool. Before wrapping up, I want to quickly talk about the unboxing, because honestly, xTool absolutely nailed it here. Everything comes packed incredibly well, each part is protected, and the whole thing feels premium. Setup is simple too. Basically remove the foam, plug in a couple of cables, and you're good to go. And the build quality is exactly what I expect from a flagship machine. The frame is really solid, everything is nice and smooth, and it's really a professional tool and not a hobby kit. I also got the air purifier add-on, and just like the laser, it was packed very well. Now, you don't absolutely need this if you can vent the fumes directly outside, like out of a window, but if you're working in a closed workshop or a shared space office, the purifier becomes basically essential. It has layered filters inside, really nicely designed, and the whole unit feels super solid. It is one of those accessories you don't think about much, but it's a really important one to have if you need it. In my setup, these two will always be side by side and plugged in. Alright, so if you're looking for a powerful laser for metal embossing and fine cutting, the F2 Ultra is a great tool. The power upgrade from the F1 is massive, and that translates to much quicker run times on your projects. And the deep embossing, honestly, that's the game changer. I feel like making coins is just scratching the surface of what this machine can do, and the more I understand the settings, the process, and how these powers behaves on different metals, the more it opens up what's possible in my workshop. And just to put it into perspective, the F1 Ultra is still a great fiber laser if you don't need very deep engraving and you're mostly doing marking, light relief, or a small personalization work. Is honestly more than enough. And you can push it pretty far as long as you're okay with the longer processing time. The F2 Ultra is in a different class, it is faster, cuts deeper, and is really built for people who need that extra power, whether that's for quick or heavy embossing and metal cutting, production work, or very specific customization made possible by the MOPA adjustability. On a final note, I know this machine is expensive, so whether or not it is worth it really depends on what you plan to make. If you already have a clear idea of what you need to produce and how you want to work, then yeah, go for it, you won't be disappointed. The quality of this tool and the complementary software is great. I can easily see how for someone doing production or customization, a machine like this could pay for itself in just a few months. And that's really what this laser is meant for: making parts, batch production, and personalization. My use is definitely a niche one, so I hope that if you're in a similar situation, this was informative and interesting. I know it was for me. I really like the F2 Ultra, and if you want to check it out, there's a link in the video description below. That's it. Thanks for watching this video until the end, and if you like this kind of stuff and you want to see more of how I actually use the laser in my workshop, stay tuned because I have a couple of very cool videos lined up that heavily rely on the F2 Ultra coming very soon. Thanks again, and see you soon in the next project.